Previous tape died right in the middle of me explaining this, so we'll do it again. The fuel pump that we're using for a water circulation pump is in, totally completed, wired, operational. Antifreeze and water mixture is in here. You've got to get a radiator cap for the top of that. Everything is circulating fine, water flow fine, air bubbles are worked out of the system. It entirely took about 2 quarts to fill the whole system. There are 3 batteries here now. There will be 5 because I have temporarily some brackets mounted here just to hold it in place. This same tray will fit right on the other side and also house 5 batteries. We're getting ready to put another battery box together. We have the aluminum cut. I'm going to take this battery tray with me and make some brackets so we can go down and tie into the frame members for support. And then we're going to cannibalize the old battery tray tops and make a hold down to go over the top of this to hold the batteries in location. So we are going to be able to use this same location here for the vacuum canister. We do not have our new vacuum pump in yet, but within the next few days we're hoping it'll show up. We're not sure. If not, we're going to go back to the other pump temporarily. You can see it's coming together nicely. We still have a lot of open air area, quite a lot of open air under the motor. This cable won't be here. It'll actually be up and attached to the controller. So a few more hours we'll get some shots because we're going to start being able to drop the batteries in place and start wiring things back together here. So by the end of this week, first of next week, we'll be able to operate it. We found a dyno about 20 miles away. We have an appointment Wednesday next week. So it'll be about 8 days from now because this is Tuesday. So a week from tomorrow, we have an appointment with an indoor dyno to do the testing and put a load on the motor and get it hot and check everything out. We'll get some shots of that when we get that process. We'll get some shots in a little while when the batteries are put back in place. Change some things around a little bit here. We're not going to suspend this on top of the motor because as the motor flexes, it'll close these gaps and maybe make things rattle. So we have a bracket down in here attached to the firewall, laying on this double reinforced lip right here, supporting the back of this. The front will be supported by cross members coming off of the battery box. We got 4 batteries in here, 5 do fit. Everything clears the hood. We're drilling into the firewall. These little barrel nuts go in and a special tool makes them flare out. The angle iron will then, the aluminum angle will lay on this lip. This drops off, so lay on this corner of the lip, mount to here, pick up some strength from here. Bracket will come down to the back of the battery tray. It'll hold the battery tray in. We have cross braces in the front that come down and pick up the old radiator mounts. This cross piece will join battery box to battery box. We'll probably have one coming off the angle here to come across and support the front of the controller. And then the motor will be isolated. It can wiggle and move and it won't interfere with anything above. Get some shots in a while. I'm going to crimp these 2 nuts in the wall here, mount the bracket, and we'll show you how that sits in here. Quickly, we'll show you this special tool. You screw one of these nuts down onto the shaft of this all the way down, and when you squeeze these together, they compress the nut, forming a flange that bites here, and it has a flange already on the outside. Crimps it, pulls it together, crimps it inside with the sheet metal pinch between it. Won't spin, catches just beautifully, and you can mount things in areas where you normally couldn't mount them. So I think they call it a barrel nut or a well nut, but that's what we're using in these areas on the car. And this $300-400 tool here makes it possible to crimp those in. Okay, these are the battery and mounts and the controller mount and the top hold down frames. This is the second try. First try, the controller was mounted above the motor to the motor. The motor flexes too much. There's not enough room for flex of the motor with the controller on top and the batteries in the engine compartment and the hood. So after trial and error and trying a few things and kind of tossing that aside and starting with these, we have a battery left. This is the battery frame for the right side of the car, the controller support, battery frame for the left side, top cover, hold down, and other hold down for that. You can see we've taken this out. Actually, it's been in and out of here, I don't know, 10 times probably to test fit, make sure the hood fit, make sure there's clearance for the hood. There are reinforcement braces right along the edge of the hood here, so the batteries can't go over too far or too high. So it's a lot of work to get these just right and yet have enough airflow underneath to help cool that motor. We did get new batteries in for the 12-volt system here. They're actually put together here. They just got to be mounted in. They're up here on the shelf. We just got the battery management circuits in, and Colin is putting those on. We have a spare pair of cells here for repairing or replacing any individual pieces that we find that are faulty. We're going to get these in. This is Friday, February 11th. I've spent all week getting all this together and in, mounted, and these frames made. Like I said, the first attempt of the frames, we kind of tentatively put them in. We were still able to use some of the same frame pieces we built. Just had to cut some legs off, move them over. Like I said, double measure for hood clearance and what have you. And mount the center controller. You'll see a bracket coming off the back there. That mounts the firewall now. We'll get shots when I get this put in here tomorrow, which will be Saturday. You see these well nuts along the back. Excuse me. We're using one factory one here because it was kind of right in our way, so we just offset the holes and use that. So, get some more shots tomorrow as we get this all mounted in here and start getting batteries put in. Saturday, I believe, February 12th. It's just before 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Got these painted, primed last night, painted, dried. Everything is mounted where it needs to be. This thing's been test fit, like I said, numerous times. Everything's been left as open as possible. You see some cross bracing here that could block the wind a little, but has to be because these brackets, these are cantilevered out into the air, and we got weight being put on them here. So we have bracing coming down to the frame. I have another cross brace that I just installed right here that stabilizes these because things are cantilevered out from this corner in, plus is supporting the weight of the controller. This had some flex or some bounce in it just a little bit. So I got this brace in here to transfer, not allowing this to squeeze together or drop, and very sturdy. I'm going to drop the controller in now and start fitting the 10 batteries into position. And before everything is finalized, mounted, we'll set a hood on here on Monday. Test fit, final test fit. Make sure we have ample hood clearance. We should have. We've done numerous measurements and actually used not the painted hood, but a used hood sitting on here to try and measure clearance. The battery trays slope slightly towards the front, about 1/4 inch to 3/8 inch of a drop. So does the controller mount and this other battery frame, because the hood also slopes the front, the car slopes the front. So in keeping with that and giving us some clearance for the hood, we had to slope things just slightly. But get some shots in a while once the controller gets put in, batteries get set in place, and you'll get a feel for what the compartment will look like when it's finished. Okay, same time, it's Saturday, or same day I should say, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I think it's the 12th of February, 2011. Mounts are in, controllers in, everything is routed. We may tweak some of these water lines here just a little bit, reroute them a little bit easier or safer for them so they aren't rubbing on things. The controller wiring will be coming up through and into here. Batteries are in, as you can see. Mounts are in. Monday, Colin may have to tweak the battery arrangement a little bit. These two are joined, these aren't. He might be able to just take this off and move it over to here. Hard to say what he's got to do there, but he can jumper those areas. These will all plug in properly. This one here terminates into something else or jumps across to the other battery set. But he's my wiring guy, so he also is pretty sure that one of these will be fine ending here. The other one may have to end somewhere in the other bank over there. I just don't remember. He explained it to me. Maybe they can both end here. Depends on how we wire them coming from the back. But anyway, 3 o'clock. Been here long enough today. My day off. Take my wife, go out shopping. Anyway, we'll get back on Monday. We'll test fit the hood. I've kind of double checked with clearance and tape measures across, and the reinforcement for the hood is way out here and way out in here. And the hood has a slight curvature up, and when the hood gets here, it actually has a bubble in it. If we feel we're just too close, because this has to be here like this, this is mounted in rubber, has to be able to move around without whacking things. It comes very close to hitting this frame over here, but it does not. And the reason we had to move some mounts around earlier is we didn't allow for any flex of this and flex of the motor. The batteries were too close, so we redid it, and this is what I came up with. Took a couple days to improve it, but it's going to be nice. All opened underneath here, under the controller and the batteries. There's about 5 inches of open space down to the motor, so it's going to get a lot more air plus the water cooling aspect. So Thursday coming up this week, we have 2 hours reserved at a dynamometer about 20 miles away. So we'll have all the wiring done, test drive it here in the parking lot and up our private drive before that time. Give the batteries a good charge overnight, and then we'll off to the dyno on Thursday, and we're going to check the cooling capabilities of the car. All other little things, as far as I know, little problems he's been having have all been tweaked. We got a new air pump in that has to be installed yet. We got a new battery charger for the lithium battery set. We're replacing the 69-pound main battery with these 8 battery cells here. It's going to give us comparable voltage and amperage, and it's going to be lithium cells which charge differently, so we had to change the different battery charger. But it's also, this weighs approximately 30 pounds. The other battery was 69. We gained 39 pounds of weight, less weight, I should say. That will accommodate this, the 3/4 of a quart of water, any hoses we've had to change. We've actually been able to downsize the complexity of the battery mounts. Here's some of the old stuff here. It was still fairly complicated, but I think we've used less aluminum this time. So we've actually gained some weight there. We'll probably have the car weighed, but I'm going to guess that all in all, we're probably down about 15 pounds, 10 to 15 pounds under what it was before. He has the same battery consistency, same number of battery cells, same number of voltage. The only thing we did was add the lithium cells to the battery box for the main 12-volt power instead of that big lead-acid battery that weighed 69 pounds. We'll get shots on Monday. This is Monday, Valentine's Day, February 14th. I have a mounting bracket down in here for the new air pump. Relay system here for the new air pump. We have a new one-way pressure valve that we'll be putting in here for the air pump. Its own relay system. We decided to use the stuff that came with the new one so that it's totally compatible with it. We will no longer be using this pressure switch on the vacuum pump. We'll be using a pressure switch that they have sent with the kit for this air pump, including this one-way valve. I'll get it mounted. We'll get some pictures of it. We've rearranged the batteries, as I said Colin might have to do. He's rearranged them, and we're linking them properly so that they'll end correctly in the chain over here. He's right now procuring some new wire ends because these cables that mounted here are too short. They actually have to travel farther now because of this battery configuration. So we got the wire, he just doesn't have the correct cable ends. He will have in the next hour or so. Get some shots shortly. I'll get the air pump mounted and we'll show you how quiet the darn thing is. It's just unbelievably quiet. 12-volt battery system, completely wired, hooked up. Air pump, hiding right here, hooked up. New relay system, new hoses, back pressure valve, sensor for the pressure, vacuum pressure. Fuse panel is apart right at the moment because we're wiring some things into it. You want to kick that on, Colin, real quick?
I'm going to hold this on again.
Yeah, just touch the wire on there. We'll show them that the vacuum pump is working properly and shutting off right away. Go ahead and kick the key on. That's how the vacuum pump is. The other noise you hear is the fuel pump circulating water, which unfortunately has to happen all the time. I'll let my thumb off the vacuum a little. Letting this open hole here. Every time he hits the brakes or holds them on hard, that's going to cycle, but only for a few seconds. Pumps the vacuum back up. Everything's routed around here. We're straight into our vacuum canister. We've had to pull some other wiring because the battery's in different configuration, things like that. We have to get some new connectors for inside of here. Excuse me. Make some new leads that will come out of here, go to here, and go to the other set of battery banks. Other than that, this is Monday afternoon, about 1:15. Other than that, we're in good shape, and by tonight, if we get all our goodies in, by tonight, tomorrow morning, we'll be able to drive the car. We're having a heat wave tomorrow of like 35, about 40 degrees. 5 to 10 mile jaunt will about freeze us to death, but we can probably get that in tomorrow. We'll get some shots. We get everything finalized here, put back together and everything finished wired. Okay, we're back. It's Tuesday afternoon, February 15th, 12:30. Everything is back, installed, replaced, put back on, wired. Controller, motor spins. Fuel pump is pumping the water. The air pump, you want to turn that key on? That air pump is so quiet, it's unbelievable. That's the air pump. That noise is the fuel pump. Fuel pump is actually louder than the air pump now. Hit the brakes a couple times. That's it. Just a hum. Lithium batteries have replaced that big honking battery. You still have to have some sort of a hold down. It's sitting so deep it really can't come out, but we're going to put a strap of some sort of hold down across here. Everything's wired. This has been calibrated to 13.5 volts, so it will keep these batteries up to in the 13.5 volt range. As they go down, power from the main battery pack will come through here and put them right back up. Installed another proper fuse here. Like I said, everything's wired. Battery hold downs are in, assembled, nice and snug. Controller's mounted on rubber, so it has a small amount of play. The only thing we don't have hooked up is these units need to be hooked up to the main battery management system so that they can be charged properly. Other than that, we don't have the wiring. The wiring's coming in for that. It's special insulated wiring like this right here. I forget what category it is. And right now we just finished retorquing all of these bolts that hold the main cables down. And right now I'm in the process of retorquing all of these bolts back here just to make sure that there's no connection problems. Everything should be torqued about the same. If a bolt, excuse me, if a bolt is a bit loose and you get any arcing or some resistance there, then the batteries aren't going to charge, they're not going to work properly, you're going to get voltage drop. So there are 400 of these screws, bolts actually, with a 10 millimeter head. All 400 right now are being retorqued. I'm unsnapping the caps. This bank is done. I'll start on this bank. The 10 batteries in front are finished. As soon as that's done, we gotta get to these and the other ones inside. Every single bolt has to be checked just to make sure we cannot have anything causing us any trouble. You can see this flashing. It's telling us that the battery management system is sensing and checking each battery cell currently. We did have one failure of one of these printed boards, and we did buy some spares, so that's been changed, and it happened to be on one of the front batteries. Other than that, they're all functioning properly, all wired into this system back here. Anyway, we'll get some shots as we assemble things, get it back together, and get the car out on the road. We stepped up our day for the dynamometer. It will be tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, and we'll be taking the camera with us there, and we'll video what the procedure and how things go.
But I don't have a slide.
We're gonna be heading out, load this in the trailer, heading to the dyno. We're just topping off the 12 volt battery here. We're not going to be using that much today, other than it's going to run, the fuel pump and other 12 volt goodies. So we're just topping it off, putting a little more voltage in it. Everything's assembled, ready to go. Make sure you got the keys. Go ahead and close up the trunk. Let's get it loaded in the trailer. Well, we're at the dyno, parked on it now. I'll pop the hood and we'll go ahead and, when he's ready, we'll strap it down.
You know how much it weighs?
2,800 pounds.
28.
Give or take 10. Should be about 2785 or 2790. We actually lost a little weight during this last conversion. We took some things off it.
Yeah, we're not quite sure. You're in that ring.
For voltage.
Okay, we're running 20 miles an hour. RPMs, 50 amp load. I'm going to shift to fourth gear here. This isn't working properly.
Jumping kind of funny.
It's not working properly. Fourth gear at 3,000 RPMs, we're doing about 50 miles an hour. Something's wrong with the speedo. Something we didn't hook up right or something. Can you periodically put more load for like 5 minutes or something?
You can change the load on the fly, anything you want.
I'm doing about 60 amps. I'd like to kick it up close to 100 for like 2 or 3 or 4 minutes and then back it down a little bit. Give that motor a chance to warm up faster.
Okay, I'll go up 10% load each time.
For whatever reason, I can't keep up with it.
Yeah, too much load, so I'm at 16,000.
Okay. That's good because periodically I can ram the pedal down hard, give it up to 100 amps, and then I can back off. There's 120 amps. This emulates him driving in the mountains of Malibu. Because he's going uphill, then downhill, things like that. Stick your finger in the water, Colin. Stick your finger in the water, see what we got. No warmth yet? So the water's not even warming up good yet. Well, we've only been doing 100 amps for a couple of minutes. I'm going to shut this down a minute, give it about 10 minutes, we'll kick it back on. Okay, after about 15 minutes, pulling between 60 and 120 amps, which is pulling pretty hard, would be kind of the extreme of what he would be doing. Without the blower fan on, and with no blower fan in front of the car on, it's sitting there now, the motor did overheat and it did shut us down. About 3 times. We let it cool slightly and then tried to do 50, 60 amps, but the motor was too warm by that time. Now we are going to wire this blower fan. That fan never came on. But we also didn't have air coming through the radiator. We wanted to see if the water would heat up enough to where that blower fan would come on. And the motor shut down before the water got hot enough to turn that blower on. So we're going to hardwire the blower so that it's on all the time. We're going to put this in front of the radiator to emulate air coming through it while we're driving. And we're going to try it again. If that doesn't work, then what we've put on the motor, the tubing we put on the motor, isn't accommodating what we want it to do. And that's not good news. So we're going to know here in a little while, because he's going to hardwire the fan so that when the key is turned on, that fan will come on and stay on. And then it will consistently cool that water for a longer period of time instead of just a normal airflow going through it. We're going to pull air across the radiator with the blower fan. So we're going to try that and kick it back on here in a minute and pull a load on it and see if the motor continues to overheat. If it does, then we either have a sensor inside the motor too sensitive,
It's disconnected from this.
or we have still an overheating problem that the water that we're putting through the water tubes is not accommodating. We may have to reevaluate the heat transfer and water volume, so on, but we'll look at that here in a minute after we wire this up and give it a try. A little bouncy because we're in this dyno. We're going to run here between 50 and 70 amps, up to 100 periodically. The blower fan is wired directly, and we're going to test to see if that, with the blower in the front, which emulates air coming through, if that's enough to get this car out on the highway. And see if we can't get some miles before things get hot.
It's still doing good.
The problem is the motor internally gets hotter faster than we can transfer the temperature out of it. So we're going to circulate the water through the fan or through the cooler with a fan on all the time so that the water is cooled faster. And then we'll see if that accommodates us. Because aluminum transfers heat very quickly. And we'll just have to see what we get. We're doing this indoors to emulate the air temperature in California, because outside our air temperature is like 40, and that wouldn't be a fair test. So we'll get back here in a little while. It's been running now for only 3 or 4 minutes here at this amperage, and we're going to see what we get. Well, even with the blower fan running, water circulating through the radiator, the internal temperature of the motor has gone up to the point where it shut us down. You can see my foot is on the floor and I have about 5 or 10 amps of power available, and I'm only doing 250 RPMs with a motor. So this is not good. I wasn't overly taxing the motor. I was running 50 to 100 amps off and on. So we're gonna, and it only ran for 5 minutes this time. Of course, the motor's been overheated several times already today, but only ran for 5 minutes before it shut me down. We're gonna do some more testing and we'll get back. Okay, we just got ran again about 5 minutes. Motor shut down. Immediately we shut everything off. Reached our hand around, put it on top of the motor, and the motor is cool. Not cool, but maybe 100 degrees. It's not hot at all. So apparently what we've done here seems to be working. Unfortunately, we think that there is a bad sensor inside the motor. Probably because it got tripped so many times that it's real sensitive now. And the unfortunate part of that is it's inside the motor. We're going to email the company that made the motor and talk with them today. It appears, because I can put my hand in here right on top of the motor. You can't see that from now. And the motor's maybe 90 degrees, maybe 100.
I wonder if I can under touch it.
Now the motor's warming up, Colin, so it's the heat transfer coming from inside to outside that we have a problem with. Now the motor's getting hot from sitting here because the water's not circulating anymore. That tells me that the inside of that motor is getting hot and it's not transferring the heat out fast enough.
Yeah, I can.
Can you feel the motor getting warm now?
Underneath.
We'll get back in a little while. We got to do some figuring here.
By that point, so
We're pulling off the dyno. We put pretty heavy loads on it for long periods of time, which I'm not sure is totally consistent with driving. So what we're going to do, we're not real happy with the results. The water cooling system is working because the water would get warm and cool back down and that kind of thing. So we know that it's working. We're not getting fast enough heat transfer that we like from the motor inside to the outside. So we're going to take it out on the road today and tomorrow and put some miles on it on the highway and so on. We're having a heat wave up between 45 and 50 degrees, so we're going to give it a regular road test and test everything out that way. Be more consistent. I know it's a little bit cooler here than it is in California, but it'll still give us a pretty good idea of what we got to work with. And we'll talk to the company. We don't know how we can get any better heat transfer from the inside to the outside than what we have already, but we'll get some more video after we do some road tests. Okay, we're on a road test. This is Thursday. We've done some tweaking, done some investigating, done some battery swapping, things like that. We've configured the amperage to the, what is it, the motor controller, but not the stator, the armature. The armature in the motor was getting too hot because it was pulling too many amps. So we've adjusted that. And we've driven. We started at 1,793. We're in Lowell. We're at 1,829 and a half. So we've traveled 36, almost 37 miles. And we're going to be heading back. We've gone as fast as 78 miles an hour on the expressway. We'll get some shots as we head back. It's a little bit noisy. That's why we stopped. And we still have power in our system. We still have 300 and almost 30 volts.
328.
328 volts in the system. Seem to be doing pretty good. We'll kind of do some roundabout driving. Hoping to put around 80 miles round trip today. We have not had one failure or overheat of the motor. We did have, at driving at 78 miles an hour, we have one battery pack drop below 2.9 volts, and the battery management system cut my power about 20% was all. I could do about 60. And once that battery recovered, I could go back up to 70. So we can't be pushing it too hard until we swap out that battery because that cell is a little bit weak. We'll try charging it individually and see if that does it, but otherwise we're going to swap that cell out. So we're going to head back to Grand Rapids. Like I said, we're a little over 30 miles from town. We'll get some shots on the highway here. It's going to be quite noisy. We're sustaining 60 to 65 miles an hour. Since we left Lowell, we're on 96 approaching Grand Rapids. Done about close to 20 miles since our last video, and we've had I had Colin turn up the power to the motor to give us a little more power, and when he did and I tried to sustain 70 miles an hour, it started overheating the armature in the motor and started cutting my power back slightly. So he's adjusted that to the factory maximum. Most people won't understand it, including me, to 82 Newton meters. And so far we've been able to sustain 60 to 65 no problem without losing power. Now our battery pack is being drawn down, but I'm still showing, I don't know if you can see it, over 300 volts on the battery pack. I'm sustaining 60 to 65 miles an hour for the last 20 miles and no failures so far. Better than we've ever had in this car so far, but we don't have quite the power that we used to. If we amp that power back up, then we overheat the armature faster than it can dissipate heat into the case, which is what we're cooling. So we're as fast as we're going to get, we're as much power as we can get, and we're going to head back to the shop, charge it up tonight, and try and put 100 miles on it tomorrow. We'll get some shots of that as we get going. It's a little overcast. It's about 40 to 45 degrees out. Not too bad. We're at 1,851 miles. We got about 15 miles or so to get, I think, before we get back to the shop. We'll get shots tomorrow. Okay, we made it back to the shop. We do have unbalanced batteries, so we did have some power loss, but not because of motor overheating, because of battery voltage dropping. We're going to plug it in tonight, charge the whole system up. We got 70 miles out of this trip, and we'll charge it up tonight, check all the cells. We'll individually top off any cells that show to be low. Shut everything down here. We'll top off any cells that show to be low, and tomorrow we'll see if we can't get our 90 to 100 miles out of her by monitoring everything. So, very successful this time, because only when we tried to kick the Newton meter power up to the armature in the motor did that overheat and start giving us a little bit of trouble. We backed it off to factory settings. Actually, we're 10% over factory settings, and we still successfully were able to run 70 miles without overheating the motor after we made that adjustment. So we're in good shape. We'll charge it up tonight. To give you an idea, Harry, it's 38 degrees out, which is why the snow is melting a little. I'm going to avoid as much of this water on the road as I possibly can. I'm going to take it out to the expressway just to give you an idea. Beautiful sunshiny day, but here's like 6.5 feet of snow. Batteries are charged. I'm not sure why I'm getting what I'm getting here, so I'm going to go back and ask Colin. Odometer is at 1,863 miles. Need Colin. The voltmeter here is not registering anything. So I just want to see if he's got a wire unhooked or what's going on. He might have something in the trunk unplugged. So I'll be taking off here in a minute, and we're going to try and put 50, 60, maybe 70 miles on it tonight before I freeze to death. We're good now. The gauge is reading properly. Colin disconnected a wire under the hood while he was individually charging the 12-volt system, and he forgot to hook it back up. So we're in good shape. I guess I'm going to take this highway here back and jump on the expressway. Maybe I'll go north and jump on the expressway. We'll get some shots. We're about to hit 20 miles at a steady 60 to 63 miles an hour. We are 3/10. Okay, they're 20 miles now. The fan for the radiator up front has been wired so that only comes on if water temperature hits 175 degrees. I'm going to stop up here pretty soon and check the temperature of the water with my finger. Then we're going to turn around and head back. That'll be a round trip of about 40 miles. I'm going to go up here till we're 25 miles, and then I'm going to check the water temp, and then I'm going to start heading back, maybe take some back roads. I've not hit any areas that are wet. I just passed the sign about 10 minutes ago that says we're having a heat wave. It's a whole 40 degrees. When I drove this before last winter at 40 degrees, the motor overheated on me at about 16 to 18 miles at this speed. So it's not doing it now, which is a good thing. So the cooling system is working. I'm going to see what the water temperature is in about 4 more miles. So maybe get a quick shot of that. I know it's very windy, believe me, very cold, but everything's working fantastic. Now I'm not going to go real far because at this temperature, the storage batteries, their capacity drops off probably 25%. So I'm not going to try and stretch it and press my luck. I'm going to stay a little closer to home for the remainder of the testing, so at about 25 to 30 miles, I'm going to be heading back. I know that it's chilly. We're going to check the radiator. 1,890 miles. We're 27 miles away from the shop. Beautiful. It isn't even warm. The motor is barely warm to the touch. That is fantastic. We've driven 30 miles, 27 miles straight, and don't even have a warm motor or even warm liquid in the cooling system. Now, I realize it's 40 degrees and the wind chill factor of the air coming through the radiator is much cooler than what it will be in Malibu. But I couldn't be happier. I'm going to take a walk into the hardware store here, Barnes Hardware in Muskegon, and see what kind of guns they have for sale. Make my wife happy. Get back in a while. Okay, I'm back. It's about 7:30 in the evening. It's 37 degrees outside. And I have 1,931 miles. So started with 1863. So we are 31.8. So 1,932 actually. We're 69 miles. Is what I drove tonight. Little chilly. And I was experiencing on the way back the last 3 miles a loss of voltage, a little bit of loss of power because one of the batteries is still not charged as much as the rest of them. And I'm going to plug it in tonight and charge them up again overnight. It's going to take a few charges to balance them back out because we've swapped things around and such. But 69 miles, almost 70 miles with this run, and I did start experiencing a low battery, but part of that can be the cold weather. They don't work as well, and the voltage drops about 20%, so that isn't too bad. We'll charge it up tonight, and if the weather will allow, I'll run it some more tomorrow. The weather has not allowed. It is the 7th of March. Transport company will be here later today to pick the car up and haul it back to California. We didn't like the fact that the back here of the car was open a little bit here between there and the batteries. So what I'm doing today, I've got some time. I'm building a it's a little dusty, I got to clean it off, but I'm building a shield that will set in here, screw to the bottom, and aluminum's going to come off of here and screw to there. And this will set in here and prevent anything that is put in the trunk from flying forward and hitting the batteries. Yet it's perforated. Perforated metal allows all kinds of airflow. It'll sturdy up this area, or actually clean up this area, and allow him to put groceries or whatever in the trunk here, anything he wants to haul, without hitting the brakes and having them fly into the batteries and knock a wire loose or whatever. We've charged up some lower lithium batteries under the hood and balanced it, plugged the system in. Batteries are up to full capacity. It may take a couple more charges to balance them out properly again, but it's looking good. They're going to pick it up, haul it to California. He'll have it about 10 days, and my son will be vacationing out there. And if there's any little tweaking to do or any questions, he can take care of it with the customer. So this is pretty much it. I'll get last shots of that screen going in the back. Other than that, she's ready to fly. Okay, we're a few hours later. I have the mesh finished. Brackets made. Screwed to the bottom, 3 brackets surrounded with a rubber. Took a vacuum line, slid it over the edges. So it's sealed in rubber around the bottom and up the sides. We have a 3/16 by 1.5 inch wide aluminum strip along the top with 5 screws holding the mesh to the strip and 3 larger screws screwing the aluminum to the body. Very sturdy. He can put things in here now without endangering the finer wiring on the battery. We're thinking of something right in here to protect this wiring as well. Just not sure what to do yet. If he keeps things in the trunk over here, we're probably all right, but can't have things whacking this either, so I may put a little something here, even if it's a canvas mesh or some sort, just to keep things from flying over there. The new battery charger is tucked in underneath this side, specifically for lithium, for the lithium cells that are now being used for the 12-volt system. Everything's back intact, and we've already shown you the 12-volt battery system up front. So, other than protecting these wires here in the corner a little bit, which we'll go ahead and kind of figure out something for there, good to go. Good for him to do some test driving when he gets to California, when the car gets to California, and see how everything works out for him. The overheating problem is cured, at least here. I could only test drive it between 37 and 42 degrees, but the water in system didn't even get warm, so I think it's going to work very, very well. So we'll get some shots in a few hours when the truck shows up later this afternoon. Okay, hour or so later, have the last shield taken care of here. Also being warned that we're running out of tape, which is a good time to stop. Got very little tape left on this, or very little time left on this tape. This will stop anything in the trunk from hitting any wiring or anything to do with electrical controls, wiring to units, ground wires, power wires, battery management system hooked up to the batteries. Nothing can fly in there any longer, knock any wires loose, or cause any trouble. So he will be able to use this vehicle as a normal car, go grocery shopping and the like, and be able to haul stuff in the trunk here safely. So nothing should be able to be interfered with. So ready to close things up. Last minute walk around. I think we showed this before, how nice, much neater that is, and everything's labeled. There's a complete wiring schematic for everything we've done in the glove compartment for the customer. There's the new air pump, actual vacuum pump. New style fuse that'll handle a load, yet if there's a short, will blow. Okay, that's it for now. We're going to close up the hood. If we got a few minutes of time left when the truck gets here, we'll show the car going in the trailer. Other than that, we're done. Okay, car's been pulled out. Transport is here. They're going to move the Pontiac off the top and put the car up on top, I believe, and all the way to the front, so they don't have to take it off till they get to California. That was my request anyway. Steve's cleaned and polished the entire car, waxed it. We cleaned up the wheels. I polished the chrome. Already was getting some pitting in the chrome from the salt air in Malibu. So, as I mentioned, the little light indicator is flashing that the tape is about to run out, so it's a good time for the tape to be all done. Polishes up very nicely. And in here she'll go in a few minutes. Okay, this is the final here now. We're outside. Car's gonna go in, up on top, all the way to the front. It won't have to be pulled out until such time as it gets to California.
Hopefully.
So we'll show them how to operate it.